There's no doubt that TV has definitely shaped our culture and our view of what love and marriage and relationships is all about. TV has absolutely shaped it. I think there is one primary devastating lie that culture has taught through media. Okay, now here's the deal. I love a lot of these shows. I enjoy them too. But there's one prominent lie that, and I don't even think they intended to say it, but it's seen and we pick up on it and it adjusts, man, even our kids, our students, our teenagers, how they view future marriage and what love is. One lie, and the lie is this. You ready? That another human can fully fulfill you. That another human can fully, every hole, every dark place, every crevice, every part of your heart, that emptiness that longs to be filled, there is a human that can fulfill that. Remember here, Jerry Maguire, You Complete Me? Anybody watch the movie Jerry Maguire? Comes in, You complete me. That's great. I wonder how they'll feel about it in 5 years with kids and debt and... Right? Okay, so here it is. You ready for that? One more time. Another human can fully fulfill you. Now, I think two things stand out to me as somebody that loves studying and kind of that anthropologic study, like society, looking at that stuff. Two things that stand out to me from that. One is this. We want to be fully fulfilled. We want to be fully fulfilled. All of us long to have a good marriage. We want to have a great relationship. We want to be with somebody who loves us and takes care of us and meets our needs. We want to be fulfilled. The other thing that stands out to me from this is the reality that no human is perfect, which is probably why the divorce rates continue to climb, or people just don't get married at all anymore. I remember early in my marriage, Leslie and I dated, and it's fun. I think in the early days of dating, you're so excited about it. I mean, you're looking at somebody, you're obviously, I'm attracted, she's hot, so I got that thing going on, so I see her walk in a room, and my pulse is racing, and there's that beautiful, young Leslie Hughes as she walks in. Oh, I loved it, man. I love seeing her, I love spending time with her, I love going on dates with her. I was proud to be with her. It was fun to go out and go to the movies and walk out and introduce her. This is my girlfriend, Leslie, then my fiance, and of course we'd sit and we'd talk about what it was going to be like to be married, and we're going, hey, now we're not going to fight like these other people. We're going to fight right? So I'm going to make sure to listen to you, and you make sure to listen to me. And when we have kids, we're going to just love our kids, because if you really love on your kids, then they will be obedient and won't cause any problems, right? There's one of the things. And here's the deal too, man. We're just going to trust God that He'll always take care of us financially. And we're going through all these dreams of young love, and then you get married, and then life comes along, and it's just never that easy, right? It's never that easy. So our first big fight. I have to get permission to share stories like this. So our first big fight is a doozy. We were living together. It was the very end. I had done all my exercise science stuff, finished all that, was finishing up my philosophy and religion degree, coming right near the end of it. We were living in an apartment together. Total cost to be in that apartment, $400 a month. We were living the high life, my friends. $400 a month. And we had our first big fight. Honestly, I don't even remember how it all started, but it kind of how it happens in homes or in relationships. It's you fight, and then you start noticing things that you don't like, and then you bring up all this other stuff that really has nothing to do with the fight at all. So it just continues to escalate, and pretty soon it's way intense. She runs into the back room. This was kind of her thing back then, is she'd run into the back room, and she'd lock herself in the bathroom, our bedroom, bathroom, lock the door, and I could hear her crying, right? And so I go to the door and I knock on the door and be like, we have to talk this out. Remember before we got married, we said that we'd always sit and we'd always talk it out, and real life is so fun. So fun. And so here I am, I'm trying to get her to come out, and it just grows, and she's like, you don't listen to me. And what am I doing now? And so we're going back and forth, and the whole, you don't listen to me, what does that even mean? I hear your words, and so we're going back and forth. It's just continuing to escalate bigger and bigger and bigger. Pretty soon it's this huge monster mess. I'm laying in our bed as she's locked in the bathroom, and I'm thinking, what just happened? And probably one of the biggest devastating things to me in those early years was me realizing that no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I deeply desire a perfect marriage, my marriage isn't perfect. And along with that awareness came this other big piece of the puzzle, which is this person that I thought would, Jerry Maguire, complete me, really hasn't fully completed me. In fact, she's shown me some other areas in my life where I'm not happy at all. Like it almost did the opposite in some ways. And there were some things that were easier before marriage even. And so I went from this, like, I'm all complete, life's so great, things are wonderful, to massive amount of frustration, and then the realization that no human, no person, no woman on this planet is going to fully fulfill me. And here's where a lot of people tap out, and then they go on the hunt again. With this in mind, let's go to Ephesians 5:29 through 33. Week number 1 of our relationship series, our title is Relationslips. Relationslips. This is the first one. Relationships are purely physical versus something deeply spiritual. Relationships are purely physical versus something deeply spiritual. This is the lie. People think it's a physical thing, right? You fall in love, that emotional connection, that heart long, right? And that's what it is. But marriage is so much more than that. Love is so much more than that. So let's move to our text. Ephesians 5:29 to 33 says this: "For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church." And now listen closely to these words. This is good. "Because we are members of his body, therefore one man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. The mystery is profound, and I'm saying this as it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let his wife see that she respects her husband." Okay, what does this mean? There are 3 big ideas that we need to pull from this text. The first one is this: the mystery of unity is woven into Christ owning us. Let that sentence sit for a second. The mystery of unity is woven into Christ owning us. He is so woven into us that he owns not even the good stuff, but he even owns the dark parts of our life. He died to save us from them. The Crossway study note says it like this. I love it. It says, one flesh. The command for a husband to love his wife as he loves his own flesh, verse 29, originates in the creation reality that God joins husband and wives together to become one flesh. Paul's quotation is from Genesis 2:24, speaking of marriage before there was any sin in the world. All right, so before the fall of man, think about this. Before the fall of man, before sin enters the world, he looks at humanity, man and woman, and he looks at man, right? He looks at man and says it's not good for him to be alone. We were created to need relationships. Your desire to be in a relationship is not weakness, it's design. Let me say that again. Your desire, our desire, that deep desire when you watch TV shows or marriages on TV, or that longing to be complete, I want to be complete. We all long for the Jerry Maguire love, right? That longing to be complete is not a weakness in you. It is literally designed by God. Did you hear that? It's a design in you. And the way love is really shown is by Christ owning not just even the good, but even the bad parts of humanity. Think about this. Christ hanging on the tree, beaten and abused, not because he deserved it, but because he owns the covenant. He, through the Father, made. How far would you take your covenant? How far would you take your covenant? I can't help but wonder if people really understand the covenant they make when they get married. For better or worse, in sickness and health, for richer or poor, till death do us part. So there I am on the bed. My wife's locked in the bathroom. We're love and marriage at this point. And it's really fun to own the parts of marriage that are fun when it's exciting and great and things are going your way. When I've got this beautiful Leslie Hughes, right, on my arm, and I want to show her off, and I'm excited that she's my girlfriend, then eventually fiance. I'm proud of all of this. I love it, and I love that she's a part of my life, and I love that she's here, and I love to show her off, and it's great. But then, man, there are these times in marriage, and a lot of times, most of the time, it's my fault, when it kind of gets messy, and it gets sloppy, and it doesn't look just right. And the difficulty is to really understand the concept of love through God's perspective, through Christ, is we own not just the good, but even the bad parts. I take responsibility even when it's bad. The deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. The deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Proverbs 31 talks about marriage and love and family through the idea of what our values should be. And so you guys know this: beauty is fleeting, but a woman that fears the Lord is to be praised. You guys have heard that, right? Beauty is fleeting, but a woman that fears the Lord is to be praised. So let me kind of make it modern too. Money is fleeting, but a man that fears the Lord is to be praised. I mean, one day, if you get married, or if you are married, you get on stage and you make those covenants, and choosing the right person is so crucial. So here we are, money is fleeting, but a man that fears the Lord is to be praised. Muscles are fleeting, but a man that fears the Lord is to be praised. My son, love him to death. My middle child loves to go everywhere with his shirt off. Nathan, those of you that know Nate, he is outgoing, sanguine, he loves attention. This boy, he's destined for fun and trouble, maybe at the same time. Rebuke the trouble, just the fun, right? Hang on to that. But this young man, we went swimming lessons yesterday, and he wanted to not wear a shirt at all, there or home. And so somehow it ended up happening. We got in the car, we're driving there, and I look back, and he has no shirt on. And in the midst of running and trying to get everybody in the car, I didn't pay enough attention. I'm not the greatest of dads. So we get there, he jumps out of the car, he's got literally only his swimsuit on. And he's walking in, and he loves to show off his muscles. He's 8. He doesn't have muscles, but he thinks he does. And the way he does it is this. He likes to go, boom, boom, pow. That's what he likes to do, right? So there we are, we're hanging out, and I'm like, Nate, you have no shirt on. He's like, Dad, boom, boom, pow. And he's just kind of glancing at he thinks he's such a stud, that little kid. Love him to death, man. He doesn't know one day he's going to get fat and old. Muscles are fleeting, but a man that fears the Lord is to be praised. It's going to happen, right? Here's the deal, man. Work is fleeting, but a man that fears the Lord is to be praised. Sex is fleeting, but a woman that fears the Lord, or a man that fears the Lord, is to be praised. The deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. I wrote a blog this week. From the pastor's side, I have to really wrestle with, where have I seen love based on the biblical text? Where have I seen it? And I wrote this blog, and I want to share this with you. Listen closely to these words. This is actually going to be in the newspaper next Tuesday. No, Tuesday after. After almost 15 years of ministry, I have seen a bloody trail of mutilated marriages. Children confused and lost. Adults betrayed and abandoned. I have seen countless bitter, broken people so shattered, they wonder if they could ever put back together their life again. Almost every destroyed marriage began with a tender kiss, a loving hug, and dreams of a wonderful future. Every marriage that was broken begins with this. Then in the wake of a broken world, all the love melts away. I don't see love anymore when a young couple comes into my office to talk about marriage. As they sit across my desk, sharing sweet trinket comments, holding hands, and telling me how they just fell in love, I smile back and think, you have no idea what love is yet. Don't get me wrong, it's sweet and it can be fertile ground. These young couples can have great fertile ground for real love to grow in, but they don't know what it really is yet. You don't fall in love. It's built with blood, sweat, and tears over time. Love's structure rests on the covenants and is refined until those covenants, and isn't refined until those covenants are tested by time and the fire of life. When all is stripped away, love remains. When all is stripped away, when there is no more sex, no more young beauty, no more exciting vacation, no more health, no more wealth, there, with everything stripped away, I have seen glimpses of love. Though I have seen the beginning stages of love in young couples, I believe I have only actually seen real love in the elderly. The ones who have been to war and back relationally in their marriage, the ones who have wrestled with children and raising them, the ones who have struggled financially, the ones who have had it all and lost it all. And somewhere in the midst of the chaos, through the years, they have uncovered, they have refined something that begins to emerge, and this I believe to be real love. On the bed of long-held sacred covenants, I have seen these old couples delight in something that the young don't understand at all. I don't even understand it yet. The cost of that marriage, all the work, all the years, all the struggles have produced such a pure, beautiful gift. Can you see it? Real love takes time to be built, to cook, to be birthed. Its guardrails are covenants, and its value is in the years of deep sacrifice. This is the love that Christ demonstrated. He loves us because that is his nature, and also as an example for us to imitate in our relationships and in our marriages. Ephesians 5:25 says this, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her," which leads me to the second thing. Perfect relational unity, all right? So number one, from this text, the mystery of unity is woven into Christ owning the good and the bad. The second thing is this, perfect relational unity was God's design from the beginning. Total openness, total trust, total commitment. Total openness, total trust, total commitment. Now, here's the thing, I get it. That we are broken, fallen humans, and none of us get this right. I get that we have messed up marriages. I get that we have struggled. I get that we make massive mistakes. And the way the Bible is written, it doesn't say that you are perfect. It says that is the goal in which you are to pursue. That's where you're supposed to move to. And this idea of total openness, total trust, total commitment, that life of Christ, his way of living, is set out there as something that we are to move towards in relationships, be like him. The deeper the intimacy, the deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. The deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. A number of years ago, it was the first time I actually had this happen. I had a couple come in for counseling, and they were the cheaters from a previous marriage. Okay, they were the cheaters. So, and actually, God was doing great things in their heart, and they were wanting to make things right that they had messed up, and looking for forgiveness and how to move forward. But they come into my office, they sit down across my desk. This is a number of years ago, the first time I've seen this. And as they tell the story, they were the ones that had the affair, right? And their spouses ended up splitting up, the marriages fell apart, and they came in and they wanted to try to make a marriage work themselves now. So I've got the cheaters in the office. Whew. And I'm telling you, trying to make forgiveness happen, and there's no trust with the exes and the children and the confusion, and it was a monster mess. I'm so glad I got Sharon Katie now. Sharon, wherever you are, I'm just going to send all that to you now. Praise the Lord. I have a professional counselor. She's here. I can put her to work. And there I am in my office trying to filter through this. Okay, so as the counseling progressed over a number of weeks, a couple of months, and I actually probably spent more time there than I maybe even should have. I should have referred faster. But as we kind of came near the end of this, and they were working through whether they should get married or not, and they kind of wanted to, something developed. And I didn't point this out. It emerged on its own. They knew that the other was willing to cheat. They knew it. They knew that the other was willing to cheat. And so as the relationship developed between those two and they started talking about covenants and commitment, every time they started talking about covenants and commitment, there was this deep fear that each of them had because they knew that the other had the potential to cheat. Hang on to that. Number 3, marriage is intended to be a beautiful, mutual, cyclical sacrifice. We have this tendency in our culture to either be emotionally driven, and if we are emotionally driven, and principle driven, so it's emotionally driven or principle driven. And if you are emotionally driven, you're led by those feelings. Somebody walks in the room, hot, attractive, excited, it's wonderful, they're cute, they're whatever, right? Emotionally driven. And the way media is geared, real love, the way they paint it, starts with the emotion. And if you are emotionally driven, you're driven by, well, that's hot, that's what I want, I'm excited, or there's this other piece of the puzzle that's principle driven. The word love, agapeo, in this text, literally means seeking the highest good for the other person, okay? So now all of a sudden, in a God-woven, Christ-centered marriage, something changes. And the center of your marriage is now not your wants, not your feelings, not your desires. Now again, that's not all bad. I'm not saying to always move those away. Those are okay, but it's not the lead. Now all of a sudden the lead is this question, and the question is, what can I do that's in the best interest of the other person? That word agapeo in the text, the Greek word there, means that you show love. Even if it costs you something, you show love. And the ultimate example of this, even in marriage, we find in Ephesians 5, is the example of Christ on the cross. He showed love and it cost him everything. Time to reflect. I'm going to talk to married couples and single adults, single people, I mean even teenagers, whatever, single people. So married and single. I'm going to start with the married folks. You ready? Time to reflect. Do I know the needs of my spouse? Okay, so let's say that I was to grab you, pull you aside, or we had one of our counselors, somebody grab you, pull you aside, right now, pull you aside and go, hey, in your marriage, do you know the greatest need of your spouse today? Are you aware enough in your marriage that you know what the greatest need of your spouse is today? Do you know that? The second thing is this. These all kind of lead together. When was the last time you sat down and asked your spouse what he or she needs? And I get this. I mean, my wife and I have been on many, many, many dates. We go on Friday dates. And what I do often is when I say things like, honey, I want to talk to you, that doesn't mean I want to learn from her. More than likely, it means that I want to let her know what I think about something. And I'm learning, if I'm going to really honor this text and honor the Word of God, I'm learning in my mind that when I say, honey, I want to sit down and talk with you, I must make time in the marriage to just ask the question, how are you doing? And stop talking. Do you know how bad I am at that? I'm really bad at that. And what I want to do is in those moments, I want to learn where my wife is at. I want to know what her struggles are, what her fears are, what is she battling with, is she okay? I want to learn where she is at. And then likewise, there ought to be times when she's doing that for me. So do you know the need of your spouse, the greatest needs of your spouse too? When was the last time you sat down and actually asked them and listened? And listened. Now, the funny thing is, if you're sitting out there going, I wish my wife would listen to me, that's probably a good sign that you're one that needs to listen, right? Am I willing to sacrifice something? Now, here's the really hard one. This is where the rubber meets the road. Am I willing to sacrifice something to meet one of his or her major needs? Am I willing to sacrifice something major to meet one of my spouse's needs? Not do I want whatever it is. Not do I feel, but am I willing to sacrifice something to meet one of their major needs? That is really hard to do. To journey down this road of discovering what the needs are of your spouse. This isn't young love, falling in love anymore. It's not going to the pastor's office talking marriage and cuddling and doing a little hand hold, thumb twist thing. No, it's not that anymore. We're past that, right? This is the time when it's tough and you're fighting, you're figuring out kids, and you're figuring out parenting, and you're figuring out marriage, and it's messy and it's difficult. This is the time when you're fighting with your in-laws. Now, I don't. My in-laws are perfect, but maybe yours aren't. I don't know if my wife's in here, but I said that for you, right? Is it? No. This is a time, man, when you wrestle through the difficulties of marriage and you sit down and you engage on purpose and you find out where is she at, what are her needs, what is she wrestling with, and then she's doing the same, going, where are you at, what are your needs? And then we sit down and in my mind and in my heart, I decide I will find a way to meet one of your needs. I had this happen a few days ago, and it made me angry. My wife was really tired, exhausted, it had been a long week. And she hates doing dishes, and I hate doing dishes. I think everybody should hate doing dishes. If you like to do dishes, you can move in with us. I'm just kidding. And my wife walks in, and she's emotional from a lot of things that had happened, and she's like, I just want help, I just want help, I just want help. And sometimes when I'm hearing her go, why don't you listen to me, I just want help, I think, I'm listening to you. I don't know what help is, right? Love, marriage, sometimes that's what I think. And so I finally sit down with her, and I do what I preach. Once in a while, I get it right, sometimes. And I go, what do you mean by help? And then I stop talking. Sometimes I literally have to do this, like stop talking. And I discovered one of her greatest annoyances is coming home. We have 3 kids in a busy house to a sink full of dishes. She hates that. I work long, hard hours too. And so I walked away and I thought, I literally thought, what could I carve out of my schedule? What could I change in my life? Could I leave a meeting early or even make dishes an appointment on my calendar if necessary? I didn't have to do that. But what could I do to make sure that in some little way I sacrifice so my wife can see the sacrifice and the love, right? You get it? And it's so important that in marriage, if you're really going to unpack what real love is, it begins with sacrifice. It's uncovered through years of sacrifice. If you're single, all right, I'm almost done here. If you're single, I'm going to speak on your behalf. So I'm going to speak as if I was you. Do I know what God wants for me in a spouse? Do I know it? Have I studied His Word enough to know what it is? Because if you don't have predetermined principles, emotions will lead you. The hot guy or the hot girl or the cute whatever, that's what's going to lead you. Don't marry a whatever. Right? That's what's going to lead you, right? It's that emotional stuff is what's going to lead you. So you've got to choose. You must choose beforehand through the Word of God, knowing Him, knowing His Word. You set those parameters, those principles. You put them in place, and that guides you, not just your emotions. I'm not saying emotions are bad, and I'm not saying to marry someone ugly. You can be attracted to your spouse. That's okay. But what I am saying is principles come first. The second thing is this. Speaking on your behalf as if I was you, am I expecting too much? Now, I get that there's a juxtaposition that will begin to emerge as we work through this, but am I expecting too much out of a future spouse? Only Christ will perfectly love. If you are expecting fairy tale instant love, you will be really let down. I'll say that again. If you're expecting fairy tale instant love, you're going to be really let down. But I think it's interesting that we all want it. Only Christ can fulfill that need. That said, am I, speaking on your behalf, am I willing to wait on God's best? It's really easy to continually lower your standards as time passes. Eventually, they can become too low. The deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. The deeper the intimacy, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. I'm going to invite Jason up. and the band, and we're going to close out. And I get that this maybe brings up more questions. That's good. See, this is a series. I don't have to answer everything just today. So there I am in my bedroom, laying on the bed. We're maybe 6 months into our marriage. And she's sobbing in the bathroom. I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? I'm laying on my bed in our bedroom, and we're fighting. So fun. This is not what I had in mind when I was dating. It's not what I had in mind when I was engaged. And as we age, the problems change. Soon you have the wonderful blessing of fighting over money and children, how to raise them and how to handle situations. And even your kids are so different. I'm learning that now. What worked great with one child, you feel like is messing the next one up, and you got to figure it out. It's hard, man. Life is hard. It's messy. So, you back up 6 months from that fight. Back up 6 months from the fight. And there we are standing on a stage, young people. And I'm holding her hands, and she's holding mine. We're looking back and forth like this. For better or worse, sickness and health, blah-blah-blah, all the way through, we make the covenant. And in that moment, young people are so caught up in the emotion of it and the falling in love, sometimes they miss the real, true, beautiful foundation that's being loved, in which their real love is going to grow from. Because in those covenants, in those deep, rich, ancient covenants, lays the foundation that's going to refine that relationship. It's going to refine it. It's going to define that relationship. It's going to set up the principles in which they are going to move forward on. You don't just wait and see what happens. Now you have a plan and a strategy. You've got a goal and an objective. And you hang and you look in each other's eyes and you say, for better or worse, till death do us part. And the only example that comes to mind is going to war. And when I'm on the battlefield and bullets are flying, and one of my friends on the battlefield gets shot, at the cost of your own safety, the cost of your own health, maybe, you reach down with bullets still flying everywhere, you pick them up, and you move towards the principle-driven objective that you agreed upon. This is why it's important. Biblical covenant marriages are important. Because if you don't, when in the middle of the firefight, in the middle of the fight, when it's all going down, you don't know where to go. You don't know where to run. You don't even know what the foundation of your marriage is. This is why biblical covenant marriages are so important, because you have the objective set, you know where you're going, and when the fight is taking place and there's nowhere to turn and you're both hurt and you're both exhausted, you help each other up and you know where to move towards. So that beautiful moment, looking in her eyes, she's looking in mine. For better or worse, till death do us part. I was so caught in the emotion, I missed the foundation that was being laid. And now I look back, and with the weight of kids, the weight of health issues, the weight of financial stuff, I look back and I see the foundation that was beginning to be laid. Married or single, emotion or principle, emotion or principle, emotion or principle. Who are you going to lock arms with?